Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Thursday, May 27th, 2021. All right, and we are live. Calling numbers 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the call-in number if you have a question or comment. Now, also before the break, didn't get a chance to tell you another topic we're going to discuss today is Kristen Clarke. Attorney Kristen Clarke was confirmed on what was that Tuesday, May 25th. She was confirmed as to head up the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division. She'll be the first African American woman to head up the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division. And she was confirmed in the U.S. Senate by a vote of 51 to 48. 51 to 48. She'll be the civil rights. She'll be the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights. Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights, Kristen Clarke. And there was only one Republican who voted for her. Okay. And that was Senator Susan Collins. Senator Tim Scott, the only African-American senator in the Republican senator, only African-American Republican senator, did not vote for this sister, Kristen Clarke, who's a brilliant, brilliant attorney. And Senator Tim Scott is up for re-election also in 2022 as well. All right. So I want to jump into this first story here. I've talked about this a number of times, the fact that we rebuilt Black Wall Street after the race massacre. All right. Now, this doesn't mean that we shouldn't get reparations. Those in Tulsa should not get reparations. That doesn't mean that because we rebuilt it. But it shows what we can do when we work together as well. So there's a new book coming out by Carlos Moreno, that deals with some of this history. And what happened was the expressways are going to come through like in the 1970s and wipe out a lot of these businesses, a lot of these Black owned businesses in the Greenwood district. Okay. So I want to go to this. Let me pull up this article here because we were having some technical difficulties. Tulsa's Greenwood Neighborhood found prosperity after the 1921 race massacre. Then highways arrived. And we know that the U.S. Interstate Highway Acts in 1952 and 1956 drove about 41,000 miles of U.S. interstate highways all across the country, and they ran through a lot of African American communities. They ran through Black Bottom right here in Detroit, Black Bottom, Paradise Valley area. I-375 ran through there, wiping out a lot of homes and wiping out. There's about 300 businesses there that were wiped out. Okay, Tulsa's Greenwood Neighborhood found prosperity after the 1921 massacre. Then the highways arrived. The plot to take it over has happened. It just didn't happen in 1921. A researcher said of the once thriving Greenwood district. All right. So Carlos Moreno, who is shown here, Carlos Moreno stood on the Archer Street Bridge over U.S. Highway 75 in North Tulsa, pointing west as he squinted into the sun. Much like the wind on top of the bridge, the traffic underneath was loud, and there was no shade from the May heat. But it's here, he said, where you can see what was taken. He said, unless you're actually standing here, you don't know, you don't get a sense of the destruction. And that he's an author and graphic designer who moved to Tulsa in the late 1990s. Now, at the end of May 2021, it will be a century since a white mob looted and burned and murdered in Tulsa's Greenwood neighborhood, then known as Black Wall Street, where the business district was known as Black Wall Street. Okay, the business district in North Tulsa was known as Black Wall Street, killing hundreds and displacing thousands of African Americans. Now, with this commemoration just days away, many have focused on the violence, but that's not the full story of Greenwood nor its end. Okay, and here's a picture of the ruins of after the 1921 race massacre. So in his new book, set to be released next week, the book is called The Victory of Greenwood, The Victory of Greenwood. Carlos Marino explores how the neighborhood had a second renaissance, led by African-American Tulsans after the massacre, rebuilding even bigger than before. They rebuilt North Tulsa even bigger than before. It was not the bloodshed that eventually destroyed most of Greenwood, however. Rather, it was, he said, pointing to the spaghetti of interchanges to the south and the expressway that stretches north. It was the expressway that's going to eventually come through and destroy the rebuilt Black Wall Street, the rebuilt Greenwood district. That's what's going to do it. It's important for us to understand that African people worked together to rebuild another Black Wall Street in Tulsa. And it was even bigger than the first one. That's not talked about a lot because we don't understand our history. But it's the interstate highways that came through that destroyed it. All right, so quote, Black Tulsa is a happy city. It has new clothes. It is young. Now, this is Dr. W.B. Du Bois, 1926, okay? 5 years after the massacre, okay? Dr. W.B. Du Bois wrote, Black Tulsa is a happy city. It has new clothes. It is young and gay and strong. Dr. W.B. Du Bois wrote after a 1926 visit, quote, 5 little years ago, fire and blood and robbery leveled it to the ground. Scars are there, but the city is impudent and noisy. It believes in itself. Thank God for the grit of Black Tulsa. Thank God for the grit of Black Tulsa. Now, I'm in 7 documentaries. I'm in a documentary dealing with the history of Black Wall Street. I'm in another documentary from Anthony Brogdon here in Detroit, film director here in Detroit, dealing with black business. I forgot the exact name of it. Black business, and we deal with some of the history of African American owned businesses, things like this. I've done a 2.5-hour lecture dealing with the history of Black Wall Street. Also, this one right here. This is available at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Black Wall Street from destruction to the resurrection of economic empowerment. Black Wall Street from destruction to the resurrection of economic empowerment. And one of the things I talk about is how the many people will focus on the destruction and what white people did to us, but we won't focus on what we did in response. Number one, many of us were armed, so we shot back also. That's another part that's left out. You had a lot of retired World War I veterans that lived in North Tulsa, brothers. They had guns. We shot back. We weren't just running. And this is some of the history of the 1919 Red Summer, where you had African-American World War I veterans who come back home after World War I ends in 1918. And you're going to have 25 major race riots across the country because white men were going crazy. They couldn't find jobs. They came back from the army. They came back from the war. They couldn't find jobs. A lot of the jobs that they had before they left were being filled by African Americans, many of them moving from the South up north, and then other immigrants who were here. We filled that labor vacuum. So you're going to have these major racial conflicts that take place in 1919, and then is going to continue into, and see, 1919, you still have the great pandemic taking place, the Spanish flu pandemic of 1918, which goes into 1919. You have that taking place as well. But you're going to have you have a rise of the Ku Klux Klan in the 1920s. That's as a result of the movie The Birth of a Nation, debuted February 8th, 1915. And the movie The Birth of a Nation rejuvenates the Ku Klux Klan because the Ku Klux Klan are the heroes of the movie. Then you have the Tulsa Race Massacre of 1921, and the Ku Klux Klan helped instigate that. You had a lot of jealous white men who fought in World War I and can't find jobs, and here you have these prosperous African Americans. But you have, you know, in Tulsa, we're armed, so we're fighting back against the white supremacists. We're shooting back against them. Okay, so this is part of the history that's not talked about. This is why Hannibal B. Johnson's book is so good. It's so important. And Hannibal B. Johnson has another book dealing with the 100 commemoration as well. But this book right here, Black Wall Street from Riot to Renaissance in Tulsa's historic Greenwood district. Okay, this is a crucial book. All right. So let me flip back over here to the article. Then we're going to go to clip 1 here in just a second, Shakita. So by the 1950s and 1960s, Greenwood had blossomed into one of the most successful Black neighborhoods in the country. Okay. At its height, Black business owners operated 40 grocery stores and dozens of confectionaries across the mixed use 35 block community. Okay. Now, this is in the 1950s and 60s when we rebuilt it, because this is after we rebuilt Black Wall Street. It had blossomed into one of the most successful Black neighborhoods in the country. Again. So Carlos Marino says, and now what do you see? As he stood above the expressway, he said, it's just highways. That's it. There's nothing else. So what remains of the neighborhood's historic prosperity is one block of Black-owned businesses and the Vernon Chapel AME Church. Okay, that's what remains there. Okay, in the Greenwood district, which was the business district, the Greenwood district. That's what remains there. Okay, what remains of the neighborhood's historic prosperity is one block of Black-owned businesses and the Vernon Chapel AME Church, where many massacre survivors found refuge from the violence, sandwiched between a minor league baseball field and the towering concrete of Interstate 244. To the north, vacant lots and empty buildings mark the once bustling area the city rezoned for industrial use. Okay, the city rezoned for industrial use. Redevelopment has crept up toward Greenwood from downtown over the decades, and a recent boom in the city's arts district, including upscale restaurants, posh bars, and galleries, has radically reshaped what was once considered West Greenwood. Now, Freeman Culver III, president and CEO of the Greenwood Chamber of Commerce, said the new developments, they're just squeezing us like a python. The new developments, they're just squeezing us like a python. Sounds like gentrification. Okay, so you see here, you see a map, historic Greenwood here, and then Vernon Chapel AME Church here, the former location of the Dreamland Theater, all of this. So you have basically white people still in control of Tulsa, okay? And the governor, what's his name? G.T. Bynum, white man, he's a Trump supporter, okay? He's a Trump supporter. All right. Let me see here. And this is what we're going to do. We're going to go to clip 1 here. I'm going to go to clip 1, Shakita, and I got to call back in through Skype also. Okay, because the computer went down on me. So let's do this here. Let me let's go to clip one. This is from the readout with Joanne Reed. They're talking about the 100th year commemoration of the Tulsa race massacre and what's going on down on the ground. Let's go to this clip. Yeah, it's Michael. Okay, let's do this. Yeah, put me back on. Let's start the clip from the beginning. All right. Okay, we're going to start this clip from the beginning. I want you. We're going to start this. We're going to start the clip from the beginning, and we're going to start the clip from the beginning. I want you to hear there's an update because John Legend was supposed to perform, and Stacey Abrams was supposed to be there also, but we have an update because of some threats. Let's go to this clip.
Some warnings about safety and security that have caused the Remember and Rise event that was supposed to feature John Legend and Stacey Abrams to be canceled. I want to get what we know about it. Just for our audience, I want to read this. In a memo, the Department of Homeland Security says they haven't seen any credible threats, that the current Homeland Security threat environment remains heightened, and also says white supremacists historically have used simple tactics such as vehicle ramming, small arms, edged weapons, and rudimentary explosive devices to target individuals perceived as having ideologically opposing views, racial minorities, or law enforcement at mass gatherings or crowded public spaces. What do we know about what prompted the commission to cancel?
You know, there are a lot of things, Joy. The commission is not a part of the community of Greenwood. The descendants and survivors are not closely affiliated with what's happening with the commission. The commission is run by a bunch of white conservative Republicans who have raised over $30 million. And how much of that $30 million do you think they've offered to the actual descendants and survivors? $0. So I want to be really clear with the American people watching right now. The commemoration continues with Justice for Greenwood. And these are the descendants of Greenwood. These are the survivors of Greenwood. Dr. Tiffany Presser, who's the brother of Terrence Presser, she's hosting panels. The lawyer, Demario Solomon Simmons, he's hosting panels and events. So this is, not a major cause celebration. And there was a lot of concern, and even outside of the Homeland Security threat, there was a lot of concern around how this commission was coming together. And so people who had contributed money to this commission started asking questions. Well, wait a second. We didn't know. We thought this was going to descendants, about to benefit people. Nobody wants to see a Disneyland themed park here to commemorate a violent atrocity that happened in this country. So what they're asking of the commission was why they're being sued is cut direct payments to the people who actually were impacted by this tragedy. And so as those companies started asking questions, as the people who they were inviting to participate started asking questions, then the commission started wavering. And now they say because of Homeland Security threats, canceled. I don't know if you can see, but there's not a tear setting on my face that is canceled. I'll be here with the members of the community, bringing the cross connection to you live, talking to the actual descendants and survivors of what happened here in Greenwood.
And thank you for that clarification. And we do have Christy Williams, and you are a descendant of a survivor as well. I want to play. Tiffany did an interview with Tiffany Clarke, who you just mentioned, and talked about this issue of generational wealth. Let me play that clip really quickly. This is cut 3 for my producers.
Descendants, what would our lives have been if we weren't robbed of our generational wealth? I often sit back and ponder about that. I ponder about Laurel Stratford, with her great-grandfather having the nicest hotel as a Black man in the world. He could have been the Hilton. He could have been Marriott.
And also there's Leslie Benningfield Randall, who testified before Congress. She said, I've lived much of my life poor. My opportunities are taken from me. They've raised more than $30 million, she mentioned, and refused to share any with me or the other survivors. So is that accurate then, Christy, that canceling this sort of big event with John Legend, et cetera, that's not going to impact the community? And it wasn't so much about safety. It's more about, I guess, theft.
Kristen Clarke is right. The community is supporting the legacy fest. Our only Black City Councilor, Vanessa Hall Harper, is supporting the Legacy Fest. This community has been, we haven't been connected with the Centennial Commission and its efforts. So we kind of really never planned to be a part of those events in the first place. But our honoring our ancestors and our legacy and our history will continue with the Black Legacy Fest.
Oh, let me play another piece here. This is Tiffany's interview with Nehemiah Frank, who's the founder of the Black Wall Street Times, on just the fact that people don't even seem in Tulsa to know about the massacre. Take a listen.
I had not learned about the massacre until I was in college.
Why do you think you never learned about it?
I think the reason we never learned about it is because why would our enemies want to teach the children of greatness, right? Why would they want to teach them how great they could become once again?
Scott Ellsworth, it is a conundrum, right? You have this commission that is essentially white Tulsa saying we're going to raise all this money and we're going to do some of our own commemoration that then winds up getting canceled. But there seems to be a disconnect because it doesn't seem that white Tulsans are addressing the actual history here. It's not even taught in the schools, apparently. We talked to you about this before. People don't even know about it who live in the community. What do you make of what's going on?
Well, I think we're at a point now where we're going to a new inflection point to see what's going to happen. But I think, the real reason when Nehemiah was speaking about why he didn't learn about it, the real reason was that the story of the race massacre and the story of Greenwood prior to the race massacre was actively suppressed for 50 years in this city. Official records were stolen and destroyed. Articles were cut out of newspapers. The Tulsa white daily newspapers refused to write about it for more than a half century. People researching it had their lives and their livelihoods threatened. So it's been for 50 years it was buried, and it's taken another 50 years to get the story out.
Yeah, and Tiffany, I know that you interviewed the 107-year-old Viola Fletcher, who just seemed so lovely and who gave her testimony. She's the oldest living survivor. She was like 7 years old when this happened. Were you able to talk to any white descendants? Because the thing is that the grandchildren and great-grandchildren of the people who burned Greenwood to the ground, presumably some of them are still around, some of them are still alive. I wonder if they must know in their own families that they were a part of this.
Wait, that's the crazy part. I have to tell you, seeing what happened here on ground in Tulsa. So North Tulsa, as Chrissy can tell you, is predominantly Black. And the way that the Black Tulsans here live, it is a stark contrast. It's a food desert. It's still, dilapidated. There's so much investment that could happen there that doesn't. So I asked, well, I've heard from a lot of Black people. I do want to hear from the white people. Where do they stand on this? And unfortunately, like your other guest just said, a lot of that evidence has been destroyed. And so the descendants of the people who did this are still in power. They still run the city of Tulsa. So essentially, the Black residents here work with, eat alongside the descendants of their murderers. The people who snatched their life and livelihood still control the path to the ballot box, still control economic power, still control political power. And so it's really a testament to what Black people survived, the trauma that we normalize, and the fact that people can be here and not randomly, confront some of these people that they know have a direct connection to the devastation of their lives that is rippled on and rippled through generations to still continue to impact their lives today. So the short answer of it is, no, I have not talked to white descendants of the people who did this because nobody wants to come forward. Evidence has been destroyed. I do have an interesting interview with the Mayor Bynum, who is adamantly against reparations, the Trump acolyte, but wants, this big celebration because he's, trying to uncover past graves. And on the show Saturday, I will talk to the descendants of white people who enslaved people, and they weren't Tulsans, but they will talk about confronting their own history. So I think I think white people have an important role in this conversation.
And Chrissy, you are a descendant. So, what do you make of that? The fact is you're living among people who did this to your community, and they have all the power still.
Yes, they still have all the power. And, even Scott Ellsworth, who's on this panel with us tonight,
And no offense, he has done some great research about the history of Greenwood and has written many books. But you see a lot of white people who still profit from our pain and from our oppression. And as I serve on the Mass Graves Committee, the Mass Graves Investigation Committee with Scott Ellsworth, they listen to him more than they listen to us. So it is still those white people who are in power. And it's important that we control our own history, we tell our own history, and that, we have to make it clear that what we want for our community. And as we honor our ancestors, we have this Greenwood Rising History Center coming up, but they never did engage with the community on what kind of history is in that museum. Our museum has always been the Greenwood Cultural Center, and that has been taken from us, and the community feels really slighted on this. And then, I'm also a Creek Freedman descendant. So, the Creek Nation kicked the Black people out of the tribe in 1979. My family had over 460 acres of land. And we lost that when Oklahoma became a state. And the first law was Jim Crow, and they appointed white guardians over our property.
Yeah.
So, it's a double-edged sword for a descendant like me. And for a lot of descendants in Tulsa, these stories are just not being told.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that, Mr. Ellsworth? Because
pause it right there. Pause it right there,
Shakita.
Shakita.
What do you have to say about that?
Pause it right there, Shakita, please. Thank you. But back it up about 20, 30 seconds. Okay, so you heard this, the one sister, and I forgot which one it was, but she is of Creek Indian ancestry. She's a descendant of Black freedmen who were African slaves owned by Creek Indians, owned by the Choctaw, Chickasaw Creek, Cherokee, and Seminole Indians. Her family got land because of those Black freedmen Indian treaties of 1866 that you hear me talk about. And her family her ancestors were members of the Creek Indian Nation. But then in about 1971 or so, the Creek Indians are going to kick the Black freedmen out of the Creek Indian Nation. The same thing happened with the Cherokee. The Cherokee stripped the descendants of the Black freedmen of their rights in the Cherokee Nation. The descendants of the Black freedmen are going to sue, and they're going to, win all their rights. This happened somewhere around 2011. Then they're going to sue to get their rights and voting rights within the Cherokee Nation, to get all that back. But she talked about how her family owned over 400 acres of land because they got land through the Indian treaties in different ways. They owned over 400 acres of land, and that land, when they were kicked out of the Creek Indian Nation, that land was taken away from them. All right. So this is a deep history. Now, as I've said before, see, you have to understand this chronology of history, because Tulsa, Oklahoma was founded by Creek Indians around 1836 or so. When the Creek Indians get pushed off of their land in southeastern United States, and they go over 1,000 miles into Oklahoma on what's known as the Trail of Tears, and they take their African slaves with them. And it's the same thing, the Choctaw, Chickasaw Creek, Cherokee, and Seminole Indians, they all owned African slaves. They all get pushed off their land in southeastern United States because of the Indian Removal Act, Alabama, Georgia, different areas like this. The Indian Removal Act of 1830, signed into law by that no good president, Andrew Jackson, who was the favorite president of the other no good president, Donald Trump. So they're going to take their African slaves into Oklahoma. Oklahoma is a territory at this time. Oklahoma does not become a state in the Union until 1907. And after the Civil War ends, 1865, you're going to have these treaties, and they're going to get land. They're going to get these Black freedmen. They're going to get land. They're going to get some type of compensation, different things like this. They become citizens of those respective Native American nations. etc. Have voting rights. They have status in those Native American nations, have voting rights, but some of them are going to be kicked out, stripped of those, stripped of that status. This happens to the Cherokee, the Black freedmen in the Cherokee Nation, as well as the Creek Indian Nation. There's an article from, let's see, and I'm really trying to keep this short, but there's an article from, which one was that? Hold on. This deals with the Creek Indian Nation. This is from November 20th, 2020. I think this deals with the, does this deal with the Creek? Yeah, the Muskogee Creek. Okay. Let's look at this article quickly. All of this history is tied together, and this ties all into the history of Tulsa, Oklahoma, Black Wall Street, etc. Okay, this ties into a lot of our history. I have Cherokee and Black Crow in my family on my mother's side, because my mother's from Tennessee. Her family's from Tennessee. Okay, the Black Native American descendants fighting for the right to belong. Black Native American descendants fighting for the right to belong. Descendants of enslaved members of the Muskogee Creek Nation have been in a decades-long fight for recognition after they were told they could no longer call themselves members. The Black Native American descendants fighting for the right to belong. This article is from November 20th, 2020. November 20th, 2020, NBCnews.com. It says, when Rhonda Grayson was growing up in Oklahoma, summer visits to her grandparents' house in Wawaka meant time spent in the kitchen with her grandmother. Together, they cooked peach cobbler and traditional native foods like wild onions, poke salad, and hominy, the corn used to make grits. Cooking was just one way that Rhonda Grayson learned about the rich history and culture of generations of Black Native Americans who came before her. She said, I was always keenly aware of my African ancestry. And she's 51 years old at the time of this article. Part of her lineage was Native, also Native American. She said, I always knew that we were Creek. Now, one of those Black Creek ancestors was Rhonda Grayson's great grandmother. Her name was America Cohee. America Cohee. Now, America Cohee was an original enrollee in the Muskogee Creek Nation. For generations, Black Creeks like Cohee have been a part of the tribe until one day they weren't. Until one day they weren't. For more than 40 years, Black Creek descendants like Rhonda Grayson have been fighting to regain citizenship in the Creek tribe. Because their lineage also harks back to the days of chattel slavery, these would-be members of the Creek Nation have been shut out in a year marked by historic uprisings in support of Black lives. These Black Native Americans say now is the time to acknowledge their rights too. Now is the time to acknowledge their rights too. Then it gets into the Dawes Allotment Act, 1887, that you've heard me talk about before. All this history is connected, okay? And this history ties into laws. And politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth upon resources, and the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. All of this is connected. Read this article. I don't have time to get through the rest of it. I just want you to understand this history. Okay. So and the Black Freedmen Indian Treaties of 1866, that was crafted by the US government. That was crafted by the US government. So read this article here. Now, this also then ties into, this is connected to the history of Sarah Rector, okay? Sarah Rector in where? Oklahoma. And Sarah Rector was the richest Afro-American girl in the country. 1913, she's a millionaire, and her family was of Black Creek ancestry. Her ancestors were enslaved by the Creek Indians. Okay, if you look at this article here, meet Sarah Rector, Rector. Meet Sarah Rector, the 12-year-old who became America's youngest Black millionaire in 1913. Okay, we're out of time here on 910 AM Superstation WFDF. Those watching on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network, and our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep. Keep watching. Be sure to register for the online course that I teach on Saturdays, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa. Understand the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can register there. Right now, it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Peace. All right, stand by. We're going to go for a few more minutes. We'll talk briefly about Kristen Clarke. We'll talk some more about Kristen Clarke tomorrow becoming, she was confirmed. She's going to be, she's going to head up the Civil Rights Department and the Department of Justice. So we have, Sarah Rector. We just talked about her recently. Sarah Rector was born in Indian Territory, March 3rd, 1902. And let's see. Okay, Creek Nation. America's youngest millionaire, Sarah Rector, who was considered to have been the richest Black child in the world at the time in 1913. Her parents were owned by Creek Indians before the Civil War. Her parents were owned by Creek Indians before the Civil War. As the site U.S. slave explains, she and some 600 other Black children were entitled to land allotments as the children of enslaved people belonging to the Creek Nation. Okay. In 1866, the Creek Nation signed a treaty with the United States government promising to emancipate their 16,000 African slaves and incorporate them into their nation as citizens entitled to, quote, equal interest in the soil and national funds. Okay. 2 decades later, the federally imposed Dawes Allotment Act, the Dawes Allotment Act, DAWES, named after Senator Henry L. Dawes of Massachusetts. The Dawes Allotment Act of 1887 sparked the beginning of the total assimilation of the Indians of the so-called 5 civilized tribes of Native Americans by forcing them to live on individually owned lots of land instead of communally, as they had done for centuries. Okay. But these lands, often granted to former slaves, were usually worthless, inferior, infertile, and rocky, while fertile lands were reserved for white settlers. In fact, believing that it was worthless, Sarah Rector's father even petitioned the court to sell the land, as the family could not pay the $30 in annual property tax. What's going to happen is oil is going to be discovered on that land. The father's going to lease the land to the Standard Oil Company, where independent oil driller B.B. Jones found a gusher bringing in 2,500 barrels. Sarah Rector began receiving an income of $300 a day, okay, which is over $7,000 a day today. And because of this land that she owned that came from those treaties. All right, this is a deep history. All of this is connected, and this ties into the origins of the Greenwood district and in North Tulsa. So read this article here from face-to-faceafrica.com. Meet Sarah Rector, the 12-year-old who became America's youngest Black millionaire in 1913. All right. Okay. So the let me see here. We had the information. I had the website up before. You can register for the online. If you like this type of information, you definitely want to register for my Saturday online course. I teach it on Saturdays, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. This is a 9-week online course that I teach. We deal with thousands of years of history, and we deal with what led up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. Okay, so when you go to our website, you scroll down, you see the information for the my daily radio show. We have the link here to listen to audio podcasts of the shows. You can read articles I've written here. And then we have the information here for the class. We have the flyer here as well. You can click right here to register here. Next class is Saturday, May 29th, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Class has been discounted down to $60 for the entire course since we're about halfway through the course. Click here to enroll. As soon as you register for the class, you can start watching the content. We do the class live, but all the sessions are recorded so you can watch it over and over again. So as soon as you register, you can watch last week's class, and our guest speaker was archaeologist Nubia Wardford, who is an African-American female archaeologist. She goes to the Sudan to do archaeological digs, and we talked about the origins of ancient Kush and the African queens of antiquity. All right. So read these articles here, and then very quickly here. Lastly, Kristen Clarke, who was with the Lawyers Committee for Justice. You've probably heard about the contentious confirmation here, and white male Republicans were giving her a hard time, but she was finally confirmed by a vote of 51 to 48 on Tuesday, May 25th. Okay, the same day that we commemorated the murder of George Floyd. If we look at this article here from NBC News, Kristen Clarke becomes first Black woman to head DOJ's Civil Rights Division. She was confirmed by a 51 to 48 vote in the Senate, and Senator Susan Collins of Maine was the only Republican to vote in favor of Kristen Clarke's nomination. You would think Senator Tim Scott, the only Black Republican senator in the Senate, you think he'd vote for a sister? No, he didn't. He didn't vote for her. Okay. He is for police reform. Okay. Now, he doesn't go as far as many Democrats want. He doesn't go as far with police reform as many Democrats are demanding. But he goes farther than many Republicans are demanding and want. But he didn't vote for this sister. So the U.S. Senate confirmed Kristen Clarke to lead the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department, making her the first woman and the first African-American woman to helm the powerful post. In a vote of 51 to 48, the Senate confirmed Kristen Clarke as Assistant Attorney General for the Civil Rights Division. Susan Collins of Maine was the only Republican to vote in favor of Kristen Clarke's nomination, which was notably held on the one-year commemoration of George Floyd's death. Now, Kristen Clarke previously led the Civil Rights Bureau at the New York Attorney General's office. In 2015, she was also named head of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, during which time the organization said it filed more than 250 lawsuits on voting rights, education, hate crimes, and housing, among others. Okay. During which time, in 2015, she was also named head of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights under Law, during which time the organization said it filed more than 250 lawsuits on voting rights, education, hate crimes, and housing, among others. Now, she was sworn in on Tuesday evening by Vice President Kamala Harris, whose office called Kristen Clarke a tireless champion of equal justice in a statement before the ceremony. Now, her nomination was met with opposition from idiotic Republicans who accused Kristen Clarke of anti-Semitism. The accusation stemmed from an incident in 1994 in which the Harvard Blacks, because she graduated from Harvard, the Harvard Black Students Association, a group Kristen Clarke led at age 18, invited a professor accused of promoting anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. That professor is Tony Martin. Okay, Tony Martin, brilliant brother, Tony Martin, expert on Marcus Garvey. I remember seeing lectures of Tony Martin back during the 90s. Okay, so this organization invited Tony Martin to speak at Harvard. Now, Kristen Clarke defended the decision at the time in the Harvard Crimson, the school's student newspaper. She acknowledged this past January that giving the professor a platform was a mistake and touted her record on anti-Semitism and civil rights work. They go all the way back to her being 19 years old in college. Republicans also took issue with the sharp attacks on opponents on Twitter, including lawmakers such as Senator Joe Manchin, Democrat of West Virginia, and Lisa Murkowski, Republican of Alaska. Before voting on her nomination, Arkansas Republican punk-ass Tom Cotton called Kristen Clarke highly partisan and suggested that because of her past comments calling former Benedict Donald Trump the traitor-in-chief, I'm calling him the traitor-in-chief, not her, but calling the traitor-in-chief, calling Donald Trump's judicial nominees, quote, white male extremists, end quote. Senator Tom Cotton also raised the issue of her statements on police, including a June 2020 Newsweek op-ed headlined, quote, I prosecute police killings, defund the police, but be strategic. This is Tom Cotton, who also said that something to the effect that there needs to be more black people in prison or something like that. Tom Cotton of Arkansas. He needs to be voted out of office. This is an idiot. Let me try to find this. This is the same Tom Cotton who in 2015 blocked the early version of the First Step Act, blocked that in the Senate. It was Tom Cotton and another white supremacist named Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III. They tried to get that passed in the Senate in 2015 under President Obama. And these two, Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas and Senator Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III, blocked that bill in the Senate because they're against criminal justice reform. Let me see. Where is this here? Vice.com, April 7th, 2021. Tom Cotton will not shut up about putting more people in prison. See, this is an example of how elections have consequences. It's not just about your U.S. senator, it's about the other ones in the Senate also. The Republican senator from Arkansas thinks that the U.S. has a prison problem. It doesn't have enough of them. It doesn't have enough of them. I would argue you do need to have some more people in prison. You can start with some of these Republicans. You can start with the traitorous Republicans in the U.S. Senate that did not vote to impeach Trump the first or second time and violated the oath of office. They violated the oath to defend the U.S. Constitution against enemies, both foreign and domestic. If you want to talk about putting more people in prison, start with these jackasses. Okay, so read the rest of this. I don't feel like dealing with Tom Cotton. You can read this article here. You see what an idiot he is, Trump supporter. What is this here? Okay. We'll post a link here. Read that one from Vice.com. I want to go to this clip here from Roland Martin Unfiltered. They talked about Kristen Clarke being confirmed. They talked about this a couple of days ago. Let me pull up this clip here just a second. Let me cue this up. How's everybody doing? Who still needs to register for my Saturday online course also? We'll post a link here again. People are learning a lot in the class. How's everybody doing here? Okay, we have Ruby, Dolores, just a few of the people watching, Ronald, Willie. Let me go back. I want to go back to this article here from NBC News quickly. So Tom Cotton said Ms. Clarke has consistently demonstrated. So she got a lot of flack from some of these white male Republicans. Tom Cotton, Raphael Ted Cruz, Senator John Cornyn of Texas. And she's intellectually superior to them, and they know it. Okay. And they were giving her a hard time, but they still couldn't stop her from being confirmed. Quote, Ms. Clarke has consistently demonstrated that she's more interested in attacking police and calling everybody a racist than finding the facts or reviewing the evidence. This is what dumbass Tom Cotton said. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, Republican, also criticized the nomination on the Senate floor, noting 2020 crime statistics. He said early data from this year suggests that 2021 may be even worse, but apparently the president's response to this violent crime is to have a proponent of defunding the police help run the Department of Justice. However, Kristen Clarke's nomination was praised by Democrats and civil rights groups. Senator Dick Durbin, a Democrat from Illinois, said on the Senate floor, at this moment in history, filling the division, the Civil Rights Division, on the anniversary of George Floyd's murder on the streets of Minnesota, we are choosing the first woman of color in the history of the United States to head this division. It's a historic choice. It should not be trivialized by those who want to paint a caricature of a woman not even close to the truth. Read this article here from NBC News. Kristen Clarke becomes first Black woman to head Department of Justice Civil Rights Division. Then there was also one from CNN. We're going to pull that up in just a second here. Okay, hold on just a second. I'm going to post a link here again to register for the online course. You can go ahead and register. As soon as you register, you can start watching the content. You can watch last week's class. We'll post it here. I just posted the link. It's also at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. It's right on the homepage. You scroll down the homepage, you'll see it. Okay, just a second. I want to go to this segment here from Roland Martin Unfiltered, where they talked about Kristen Clarke being confirmed. Let's see here. All right, let's go to this clip.
Hey, big news on Capitol Hill today. Finally, Kristen Clarke was confirmed today. The first African-American woman confirmed to run the Justice Department Civil Rights Division. It was a 51-48 vote. It was contentious. Of course, Republicans doing all they can to stop her and, of course, Vanita Gupta from being confirmed. Both of them confirmed Kristen Clarke, formerly head of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights under law. She now goes to run the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice. Joining us right now is Melanie Campbell, Black Women's Roundtable National Coalition on Black Civic Participation. Melanie, Finally, it was a long, hard fight. They tried to keep her from getting a job, but folks persevered, and Kristen Clarke makes history at DOJ.
Yes, indeed, with a 51-48 vote margin, with one Republican, Susan Collins from the state of Maine. So we have to ask ourselves, what are the white boys doing over there on the Republican side when it comes to black women? But we're not going to take away from the fact that Kristen Clarke was confirmed, and she will be running that Civil Rights Division. She made history today. So we're really excited about that and ready to get, she's ready on day one. That's the other part of it. And for it to happen today, the day of George Floyd's, this commemoration moment of his losing his life, she'll be dealing with issues around police reform, criminal justice reform, voting rights, hate crimes, and many of these kinds of issues of injustice. She'll be right in there dealing with all kinds of things, dealing with equity and opportunity and justice. So we're excited about that. America is in a much better place. Civil Rights Division.
And it's important, Mel. You mentioned Susan Collins, a senator from Maine, voting for Kristen Clarke. I want every black person who's watching, Ron Johnson, Senator, Wisconsin, up for re-election next year, not voting for her. You have, of course, the senator, North Carolina, Burr, not running for re-election, did not vote for her. Toomey, not running for re-election, Pennsylvania, didn't vote for her. Rubio in Florida, who is running next year, did not vote for her. Don't forget that when it's voting time.
That's right. And we were paying attention to that today. I was on the highway, but still paying attention. And that's what elections are all about. But it really, and Tim Scott, I was disappointed in, quite frankly, from South Carolina, did not step up and join in voting for a sister who is exceptionally qualified for that position.
Well, to your point, he's up for re-election next year as well. Again, explain to people who don't know why that position, head of the Civil Rights Division, is so important.
I want to read point blank, what is the Civil Rights Division? I'm glad you asked that question. If you don't mind, I want to read this. What does the Civil Rights Division do? It enforces federal statutes prohibiting discrimination on the basis of race, color, sex, including pregnancy, sexual orientation and gender identity, disability, religion, familial status, national origin, and citizenship status, right? She also will be dealing with, as I stated earlier, issues around civil rights, voting rights, women's rights, LGBTQ rights, dealing with issues around hate crimes. So she has a large portfolio. I hope I didn't miss to say police reform and sentencing reform. So all these things that have a major impact on Black and brown communities. This sister, who has dedicated her life to issues around justice, understands the law and has a lived experience that she brings to this position. And I'm just excited for her to be able to continue to serve the people. Because at the end of the day, it's about service, public service. And they found it not robbery to put her in that position. With her colleagues, I think we're seeing justice coming back to the Justice Department because we didn't have it for 4 years, at least 4 years, for those 4 years.
Absolutely. Melanie Campbell, we certainly appreciate it.
Shout out to all the Black women and many others who really, Dr. Janetta Cole, who partnered with us, and all of the sisters, Shoteka Edie, all of the heads of sororities and links and so many other organizations, and all of our civil rights organizations, Damon Hewitt, so many folks, Black press, everybody chipped in to really help get her across the finish line. So I want to thank everybody who if I missed your name, it wasn't on purpose. LDF, Leadership Conference, and so many others that came together to help push this through.
Absolutely. And as I said, we certainly also want to thank you and the coalition. being partners with us here at Roland Martin Unfiltered. We certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to go back to my panel real quick here. Ben, again, I don't want people to really overlook why this matters. I love all these fools, Ben, who send me tweets. Oh man, you sit here so black people out supporting Biden. This is real simple.
Yeah.
It was going to be a Trump Department of Justice or a Biden Department of Justice. This is real simple. Here's what we already know. A Biden Department of Justice has already announced investigations of patterns and practices of the Minneapolis and Louisville Police Department. Mm-hmm. But everybody who's watching me, I'm trying to let y'all understand, I can guarantee you that Kristen Clarke running the Civil Rights Division under President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris is infinitely 100,000% better than anybody who Donald Trump would have had running the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice.
I mean, you could tell by you could tell by Jeff Sessions, the first pick. You could tell by William Barr. You could tell by all the things that Donald Trump stood for. But Roland, I think what you're speaking to is this intentional obtuseness that we get from a lot of people who observe politics, but don't get engaged enough to understand that at sometimes you're going to have to make a vote that's a lesser of two evils. And in this case, you can see very clearly that this is not even just a lesser of two evils. This is a most affirmatively a good thing. And so we're dealing with people who like politics of simplicity and the politics of talking points and the idea that they're too woke to participate. And that's the kind of simple reduction that goes on with people who make those type of comments that you get. I get them all the time about, oh, you voted for Joe Biden. Yeah, you're damn right I voted for Joe Biden. The alternative was Donald Trump. What's wrong with these people?
The thing, again, Georgia, I can tell you, we will have a far more responsive Civil Rights Division, Department of Justice under Kristen Clarke than anybody who would have been in Donald Trump's Department of Justice.
Absolutely, without a doubt. And I think historically speaking, when you look at the track record of Black women in leadership, oftentimes that is when we see the most change. And so I am excited to see how they transform not just the way that we've been looking at civil rights, but the way that we're prioritizing issues that affect Black communities the most. And hearing, about pregnancy and women's issues, LGBTQ, so many things that I think often get left out of the spectrum of civil rights, injecting that into the priorities. I'm very excited to see how this shifts what is happening across our country. And we know that the more people of color that we get into positions of leadership, for the most part, generally speaking, that is going to produce change in our favor. So I am excited for her. And I think it's also important for young women to see people like Kristen in that position, because it gives Black girls something to aspire to outside of maybe the traditional professions. And so I'm excited. I'm truly elated, and want to send a huge congratulations to her and her team, because I know it was not an easy feat.
Hold on, do you want to speak, Teresa? You speak on this, Teresa?
Absolutely, I have to speak on it. So, Kristen Clarke. I think I agree with my fellow colleagues and panelists about Kristen Clarke's appointment, and I just wanted to add on to say the Civil Rights Division is seeing exactly what Kristen Clarke is all about on day one. And that's exactly what we need in this country, is a proactive Civil Rights Division that are putting people first. She's going in without an agenda, but she's going in knowing the law and making history in the same time. And she looks good doing it. So I wish her well. And I pray that, we still have the support that she needs while in that position
to really uphold, what really criminal justice reform looks like in America.
All right. So that is from what date was that? That's from May 25th. Yeah, May 25th, 2021. Congratulations to Kristen Clarke. I saw some of the confirmation hearing. A lot of white male Republicans, were going after her, but she's smarter than all of them, so she still got confirmed. All right, that's going to do it for us here. Be sure to register for the online course that I teach on Saturdays, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa. Understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. It's a 9-week online course. We deal with thousands of years of history and what led up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. And you can visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, right on the home page. And when you scroll down, we have the information for the class. And click right here to register here. It'll take you to the next page and click on enroll. It's a 9-week online course. And I do a PowerPoint presentation. So it's visual. I do a PowerPoint presentation. We have book references, articles, video clips, everything. You don't have to buy the books to follow along in the class, but I use them for reference. Okay. So check that out. We do the classes live, but all the sessions are recorded. So you don't have to worry about trying to get home at a certain time or something like that. As soon as you register, you can start watching the course content. You can watch last week's class. All right, we have to get out of here. You can also support the African History Network, $ the AHN show through Cash App, $ the AHN show through Cash App, and then paypal.me / the AHN show through PayPal. This helps us keep broadcasting 6 days a week, keep doing the research, stay on the air, pay some of the bills, etc. When you do it through Cash App, be sure to type in $ the AHN show, SHOW. $ the AHN show, SHOW, to show my name. It'll say Michael and show my picture there. All right, we have to get out of here. Remember, the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you tomorrow.